You got whatever you want, just push that out of the way.
2 o'clock. Frankie, could you do an invocation?
Sure. So I'll stand, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you have done for us and the blessings that you bestow upon us. We ask for your guidance in this meeting and in the ones to follow. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Could you do our roll call?
Yes, sir. Dick Light.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Bill England.
Here.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Joe Bird.
Honey.
Sean Crittenden.
Honey.
Don Garvin.
Honey.
Frankie Hargis.
Present.
Wanda Hatfield. Rex Jordan.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Janice Taylor. Here. David Thornton.
Present.
Victoria Vasquez. David Walkie-Stick. Brian Warner.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for approval of minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Reports. Marshall Lane. Marshall Lane.
Too fast for me. I wanted to tell you that we've had I think maybe 3 of you have received requests through funeral homes to increase our contracted service funding. And what we would have to do on that is ask for a waiver through the BIA to increase our payment standard. And that would be the first step. The payment standard through the BIA is set by them. So we would have to ask for a waiver that we set our own standards. Then we would turn around and have to request more money. And we would need that because our contracted service isn't the only thing we pay out of that. We also have our general assistance participants who are probably the ones who need the money more than anybody because they have to require that they have 0 income. And so we don't want to hurt them. And so that's the process that we would have to go through to do that. So I just wanted to address that.
Chief?
Yes, Marcia, there's been discussion amongst council members about increasing that amount because it's been some time ago since we have, and I know everybody could use a little bit more income. In speaking with the chief, we probably would make that request to the Bureau to see if they would increase that amount first. Let's put the burden on them and then see what they can come up with before we act on what we could contribute from the council side. Does that make sense? But in the meantime, what would be very beneficial to us is give us a list of all the funeral homes and the contracts that we currently have. Is it $3,000 that we give? Is that the amount that we give?
That's through the Bureau is $2,500. Jerry, come up here. I brought my history teacher here with us.
I remember him.
We've had this program since 1989, and we have increased the payment to the funeral homes 3 times. So I don't blame them for wanting more money because if on a business sense, things increase, and but I'd rather tap the BIA before going through the council. Sure. Because I know money's tight here. It'll take some time. Just because we might get a waiver doesn't mean we would get an increase. And right now our payment is $2,500. That's the Bureau.
Okay.
And then the rest is our contracted service is $3,000. So the tribe makes up the difference.
Okay.
And that's if a family requests a waiver, we decrease the BIA payment to $2,400 and increase the tribal so we can give them that $100 wake service.
How much was our last increase?
I'm sorry?
How much was our last increase?
Are you talking about BIA or tribal?
BIA.
We haven't had an increase from the BIA since back in 2006 or 4.
Okay.
It went up to $2,500.
And then how much to the funeral homes? When's the last time we've increased that amount?
2009 is when we
And how much was
initiated our
that?
last contract. It's for $3,000. $3,000. And of course, what we're hearing from the funeral homes is that the average cost for them each year is a 3% increase. And we've had funeral homes that are asking us for as much as $4,000, which would be a $1,000 increase. If you look at a 3% cost of living increase from 2009 on our $3,000, you're looking at about $3,700 right now.
Okay.
And since we have 84 funeral homes right now that we have contracts with, of course, what they're proposing to do is to go back to the way burial assistance was done through the Bureau years ago. You would pay a flat rate of, now it's $2,500. You pay a flat rate of $2,500. The cheapest funeral service that a family can get anymore is $6,500 to $7,000. And then the family would be expected to pay the difference. So those indigent families would leave that funeral home still owing $4,000. The way it is now, with our $3,000 contract, we still get the $7,000 service, but we get it for $3,000. And when that family leaves that funeral home, they don't owe a penny. They don't owe a penny. But the key here is that they must be indigent, impoverished families, because that's what the BIA identifies their $2,500 to go to, are indigent households. So it's just one of those things. We've come a long way since '89 with our contract service. Funeral homes are threatening to withdraw and go back to the old process. They'll take our $2,500, but they're going to charge that family $6,000 or $7,000 for that service.
Do you need any action from us to support that letter to the Bureau for an increase in funds?
Could possibly
Okay.
be beneficial. Of course, the thing I want to remind you is that we have one budget that comes from the Bureau that covers general assistance, burial assistance, and emergency assistance. It's just short of $1 million. The Bureau allows us to budget however much money we want to for burial, however much we want to budget for general assistance or for emergency assistance. So we're going to get the same amount of money. All we're going to do is move more money over to burial than we do in general assistance. The last 2 years, we've exhausted our BIA funding by the 1st of August anyway. So we'll get the same amount of money. It's just a matter of, do we want to use our welfare assistance money for burial assistance, or do we want to use it for general assistance? Mm-hmm. And that's up to us as a tribe. Yes, we can increase the payment by $3,000, by $3,200 from the BIA. We'd still pay $500 out of tribal. But for all those payments we make out of the BIA fund, that's that many general assistance dollars that we'll no longer have.
And the emergency program he's talking about are for the burnouts. When someone has a total burnout in their home or some type of natural disaster, that's where we go in. There's no income guideline. They get $1,000 if it's a total burnout. If it's not, then we reduce the payment. If the fire or whatever was just in the kitchen or something, we'll reduce it. But if someone has lost their whole home, they get $1,000. And so, you can't predict if someone dies. You can't predict if their house is going to burn. So it's hard. Those two programs are hard to predict. But we've always tried to cover our contracted services.
And by the way, we did assist, I believe it was 15 households that were involved in the floods here
yeah.
recently with a $1,000 emergency assistance payment. So it's just for every dollar you take out of emergency assistance and general assistance in order to increase the BIA payment,
Yeah.
Well, you see how it works.
I would rather make that attempt first with the BIA, because if we just increase it from the tribal standpoint, then we're gonna decrease maybe the numbers that we can serve. So that's not a altogether win-win there. Is that all right with the committee? I mean, are you gonna need a letter or some type of support from us?
Again, it would probably be beneficial. Joe, I don't know, we got a waiver from the BIA to incorporate income guidelines for our burial assistance program because the traditional BIA burial assistance program didn't have income guidelines. It had resource guidelines.
Okay.
And since we had income eligibility for our tribal, we asked for authorization to use income for burial. And that took us a better part of 2 years to get approval from the BIA to do that. And now, maybe they're a little quicker now, I don't know.
Probably not.
But to ask for a waiver could be a time-consuming process.
We can't ask the state for any money, can we?
Can't ask what?
I guess you could ask.
I'll hold my breath.
Hey, what were they proposing, the funeral homes? If they're giving it to us, for 3,000 right now, what are they proposing now?
Everywhere from 35 to 4,000. If you looked at just a flat rate of 3% since 2009 on $3,000, if we increased our payment 3% every year since 2009, we would be paying $3,700 today for that service. So, you know, if we could get the payment standard up to around $3,700, I think it would satisfy most of the funeral homes. They don't make any money, but they're not losing a great deal of money
Okay.
off of our contract service. I just hate to see those indigent families out there have to go back to the old way of doing the burial
But
assistance.
how many? I know you can't predict death, but what's ballpark what we're spending on this on a year? I guess, or
For FY16,
yeah,
we did 247
247.
contracted burials, 247. Now, true, out of that 247, 76 of them were paid totally by BIA funds, but 171 was paid as a contract with the BIA money and the Cherokee Nation money. Let's see, right at this point, right now, we're at 128 burials for this fiscal year. That's been since October 1. That's an average of 28.4 burials per month. If you had, if you just run the numbers on it, we're looking at approximately 340 to 350 burials this year. But like Marcia indicate, you never know. We may go next month and not have a half a dozen burials, and then all of a sudden you have 25 or 30.
What kind of increase are you proposing to Lacey and the council?
If we looked, our current budget for burial assistance is $178,000. Now, of course, $30,000 of that is for funding that probably most of you won't remember. Matter of fact, probably very few will remember. But the tribal council back several years ago wanted to provide funding for households that are slightly over income. So they appropriated $30,000 for tribal households that are slightly over income. Well, it took a council committee to determine what slightly over was, and it was 10% was what the agreement was. If the family's no more than 10% over our basic income eligibility guidelines, we'll still provide service for them. But the whole $3,000 had to come out of tribal because they were over income for BIA.
Is that current right now?
We're still getting appropriate.
Is the policy still in place? Is the 10%?
Sure is. It sure is. But last year we only did 4. That we paid the full $3,000 out of tribal money. To answer your question, I did a write-up back in August of last year requesting an additional $100,000 for tribal funds in order to increase our current contract to $3,700. That would increase it to $3,700. If I understood
Yeah.
what you were asking, how much money are we talking about?
I'm wondering, within that 10% that's over the federal guidelines, how many people are we serving that fall in that little window that's over the 10%? You said
Last year, there were only 4.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, slightly over income. It wouldn't matter if our income guidelines was $100,000 a year. There's always going to be somebody that's slightly over that 100,000. And right now, we're using poverty plus 50. That's the same income eligibility criteria that we use for LIHEAP, for our Tribal Emergency Assistance Program, TEA, is poverty plus 50. So that's our current standards. But last year, like I say, we only served 4 families
Did you,
that met that 10%.
I don't know if you wrote all this stuff down, but your notes, I would like to see it on paper just so I can kind of process it
Sure.
and talk to other council members, kind of how we can help fix your all's deficit there with the increase of with the demand of the funeral homes.
Who's next?
We can certainly try to, through our resources in DC, we would certainly try to expedite that waiver if there was any way possible, longer than 2 years. Being election year and everything, you never know. But we just wanted this council to know what was coming. There was we saw the email that probably went out to you guys, and we figured there was questions, so I don't want you to be blindsided if all of a sudden a funeral home, quits doing business. This isn't the first time they have said they would do this. It's just that it's probably, the business sits, it's probably due, and we'll do whatever we can, but I'm like probably most of you want to go through BIA first to try to get it through there.
I have a comment from Janice and then Brian, I believe.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. The way I'm hearing this discussion is like, if the BIA gives us a waiver, that we will be getting more money from the BIA.
We would have to request
What I heard
it.
Jerry say was, you're just gonna take from this program to put into this program. So I don't see
Exactly.
that getting a waiver from the BIA is, that really.
Well, we
helps
would
us.
turn around and ask for additional funds to cover that.
Yeah, we're asking for an
But
increase.
that's still time. You do this, that's a step, and then you do this, that's a step.
Okay, so last year we used 12,000 of the 30,000 for over income. What do we do with the other 18,000?
Just expended it on regular tribal burial program.
Do what?
We just expended it on the regular tribal burial assistance
Okay,
program,
so
the
that.
$500
So
package.
that was another one that the BIA paid 25, and then we used that 18,000 to service. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my second
We
question.
paid $500 on those.
And I have not seen this email you're talking about with the funeral homes. So my question is, of the 84 we have on contract, how many are saying we want more money or we're not gonna recontract?
We basically have 2 right now, and that's Reed Culver and Harts. But between Reed Culver and Harts and Worley's, Delaware County, they probably do 50% of all of our burials. Last year alone, out of 247, Reed Culver did almost 50 of them. Harts did 48. So, they do a vast majority of our contracts. And I believe the funeral home up in Jay, they did 38, I believe it was up in, because all of Delaware County goes to that particular funeral home. Down here, they come in from Delaware, Sequoia, and Adair County to come to Reed Culver. Of course, Harts has homes in each of the areas. There's only a couple, but they represent a large portion of our overall burial assistance program.
All I have.
Brian?
I just, and Counselor Taylor hit on it, so if we're gonna ask the BIA for more funding. And as far as that goes, you said possibly last time took a couple of years?
That was to get a waiver to
To get a waiver.
incorporate income
Okay.
guidelines.
Okay.
Yes.
And, so if we do get more funding from them, but, kind of what I'd heard earlier, and, maybe you clarified that for me, is that we're right under $1 million. Well, if they fund us, do you think they would fund us more, or, I mean, I know you can't answer that, but like, the chance of them, if they give us more money, then we'll be able to allocate that out better without taking from general assistance and emergency funds and stuff, and without coming out of tribal dollars, correct?
Right, right.
But then that process could be 2 years.
Could be time
Okay,
consuming.
all
Just,
right.
just to give you an idea, last year, we expended over, I'm like Kurt, I can't see anymore. $730,000 we expended for burial assistance last year versus $409,000 for general assistance. Terrible way to look at it, but we spend more money burying people than we do keeping them alive.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. John, did you? Yeah.
How much do you get from the tribe? I'm sure it's in one of my books, and I've looked at it before. But you get just shy of $1 million from the BIA for general assistance burial. What do you get from this? What do you get from?
178,000 annual, 178,000.
And that's general assistance plus putting the boot in on the burial too, right?
Yeah. The,
So BIA pays just a
contract.
certain amount, then some of that money we give helps pay the 500.
yes, well, yeah. The BIA pays 2,500, tribe pays 500.
Out of that amount you just said,
Yeah.
100.
Out of the 178,000.
Some of that money's got to go to general assistance too, right?
Only the BIA money.
Only the BIA.
Only the BIA, the $1 million has to go to general assistance.
Years ago, we would make, I can remember it being, that payment standard being $750. That's how much it was, and there wasn't any tribal funds, so Jerry developed this contracted service, and they put some tribal money in it to make a contracted service where these families who were truly indigent could leave, and not because they were having to go to the bank and borrow the money. And that was before the funeral homes got so tough.
Yeah, that's
Right
bad.
now, they hardly won't even touch anyone until they have some money up front.
And when I say they want to go back to the way it was 29 years ago, as Marcia indicated, the BIA made a payment of $750 for the funeral service, and then the family had to pay the balance. And of course, back then, an average service might have run you $3,000, $3,500. Our first contract service was for $1,250. And for $1,250, family walked in there, got their complete funeral service, left there, and they didn't owe a penny. And it's been that way ever since. Up until, like I say, they're getting impatient, want to go back to the old way, because they can hound that family from now on for the extra $4,000 or so. And that's probably how it works.
How are we doing with the money? Of course, general assistance, probably like everyone here, is a big deal we deal with daily. How are we doing?
At this, like I say, at this point in time, our burial assistance is really high. All of it, tribal and BIA. We've already done 128 burials, and here we are into the second week of February. So we have another 7.5 months to go. And if it kept going at that level, by the end of the fiscal year, we will do somewhere in the ballpark of 340 burials versus 274 last year.
And that does put the squeeze on general assistance.
Oh, yeah, for every dollar. We've been running out of money in August, the last 3 or 4 years or so. The Bureau's never given us any more money. When we run out, because it's totally up to us how much we want to spend for burial, how much we want to spend for general assistance. They just give us a lump sum. So it's rob from Peter to pay Paul.
The general assistance a big deal.
It,
Big deal. Thank you.
it helps tremendously.
Marcia, you had some other items, I believe, or not, or was that it? Okay, go ahead.
Well, that's all I have.
So that's all you had? Harley?
Marshall and Jerry, I sent you some emails about our senior center, senior nutrition centers. I don't know what the deal was at Spavital, a little community there in my district. It was raised from a $3 fee to a $5 fee. Am I saying that correct? That's what they told me. And I've had more calls about that. You can't believe how many calls I've had. You know, I think I said in my email that I thought it was a little, almost raised at 100% increase. It'd be like another $1, it would have been a 100% increase. I thought it was a little excessively high, but then you also told me that the rest of our centers are paying $5. So,
Well, keep in mind that that $5 is only for ineligible participants. That $5 is for non-Indians that come in there to eat, or it's for those under the age of 55. That $3 rate is what it normally costs us to feed an individual, and that rate has been the same for the last 15 years. And I don't know.
Need to find out.
I know I follow my wife around in the grocery store, and I can't believe how much money she spends for food. And we're having to do the same thing. The food costs us more. We buy the food for the center to prepare the meals for our eligible tribal members. And for all of those that are ineligible, we're saying you need to pay us for the meal. And yes, it is. We did increase it to $5. It's the first time we've increased a payment like that for, oh my goodness, 15 years. And it's only for those that are ineligible to eat there at the center in the first place.
and I know what you're saying about the cost of food, but I guess from my perspective, being on the tribal council, that I see that as more of a community event for Babylon, especially Babylon. You charge that $5, those other people are gonna quit coming, and you're gonna have, if that's what you want is all Cherokees there, why don't we just say it's just for Cherokees?
Well, it really is.
Well, why did we ever start the other thing? I guess
Because we had council members back then that raised Cain and wanted us to serve everybody. So the way they were served was to charge them for the meals that they weren't eligible for to begin with. And Spavinaw is the only center that we have that has all of these non-Indians eating in it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We have 15 centers. Each and every one of those centers will collect money for those ineligible. And we have a lot that are under the age of 55. But Spavinaw just happened to be one of those centers where we don't have that many tribal members. But I can assure you, every tribal member that goes in there that's 55 years of age or older doesn't pay a penny. They can go there every day. If they're non-Indian, then yeah, they pay. They pay in all 15 centers. And like I say, the rate went up because it cost us so much to purchase the food to begin with.
Well, it's just like, I remember this same instance happened over Colcord about 7 or 8 years ago. Was that the same problem over there?
No, the problem over there was you have to be 51%, you have to have 51% participation before you can use Title VI money at a nutrition site. And I don't know if DHHS ever checked us. They would probably have a problem with Spavinaw because I doubt that it's 51% Native American. That was what happened at Colcord. And that's my hometown is Colcord. And no, they don't have our participation there because the rate's not, they're less than 50% tribal members.
Well, I just, and you know when things like this happen, they're blaming the Cherokee Nation.
I blame
They
Curtis.
raised it to $5. And, you know, we're always talking about being community-oriented and community involved. Now, this is certainly kind of driving some people away, so.
Is it driving any Cherokees
I
away?
just thought the No, I don't think so. Why should it? You know?
Well, it shouldn't.
Yeah, it
That's the
shouldn't.
whole purpose of it.
But I just think we've got to live in this world. We've got to live in the society we're in. To be honest, I just thought the $5 increase was a little bit steep. If you go from $3 to $5, that's almost that's a 70% increase anyway. You know, if we went out here and you had to pay for your interest rate on something like that, you'd certainly drive too, and I guess that's what they're doing. So, well, that's all right. If that's the way you want to run the program, I would have thought $4 would have been plenty.
Well, it would if it covered the cost of the food, but it doesn't. And that's basically, I mean, we've got to, we can't lose money on it because it would affect everything else. So.
Do any of the rest of you have nutrition sites in your area? Because we went up to $5 in all of our sites. We did have a few less participants, that's true, but not tribal participants.
Well, I just wanted to bring it up. You know, I thought it was a little excessive in the amount when we went up all the time. But you guys are running the program, so you know more about the cost of it than I do. So I'll just tell them, you know. And I guess they probably already know. And I guess the other thing, when do you think we may get another cook down there? They've asked me that and phone call, that's phone call.
We have submitted that request to HR, and we're still awaiting a panel for that area. As a matter of fact, you know, we had a difficult time getting the cook that was there.
Yeah.
She was non-Indian, and we had to go through all kinds of chaos with HR to get her on to begin with. So,
I think there was a lady that was mentioned, and we've asked her to apply for it. So,
tribal member, which will be easier to get through.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, and Harley, I'm gonna tag along on your train here if I could, just a little bit. And I've talked to Marcia about this a little bit up at one of my community centers where I'm getting calls, and every time I go to see them, I'm getting hammered a little bit. And it's not, I don't think it's so much the raising of the price of the non-Indian. We're losing Indian participation at Nowata. And let me tell you just some of the things I hear. We're making them sign up again. We're making them, we're shutting down the salad bar or not allowing salad bars every day. And the food we're serving is not as good as it was. And probably another item or two that I can't remember. I guess I should have written it all down. But we're losing tribal participation as well as some of those who used to come over from the clinic. Some of our healthcare workers, a lot of them are Indian, but some of them aren't. And they used to come in and get the meal because it was very convenient. And they don't mind paying the $5, but once you do that, then they may as well run to the Burger King or wherever they go. So you're losing Indian participation, the count is down. We've upset some people because we used to have a salad bar and we used to have this and we used to have that. Now we don't because of what they term as cutbacks. And I've been told by Marcia that's not a cutback, that's what we should have been doing all the time.
in
But
fact,
trust me, it's perceived as a cutback by those folks who have been there for a couple of years now eating.
It is
And that's all I'm not hollering and I'm not
I know.
griping too much, I guess. but
I've never
maybe a
heard so
little
much ruckus over someone's salad, but they like their salads up there.
I will say, they still get salad every day.
Yeah.
They just don't get a bar to go out there and take however much or however little they want to take. They still get their salad. It's just not going to be in the form of a salad bar. They'll still have a salad bar, I understand, 2 or 3 days out of the month. But those are menus that are used throughout all of our 15 nutrition sites. And in your particular case, the cook up there wasn't necessarily following the menus at the other 14 nutrition sites.
Well, I don't
were.
want to get anybody in trouble. I'm just telling you that, why don't you all go up there and sit down and talk with them?
Well,
That would work.
we've heard language, our feedback that, that may not even be allowable anymore on salads because it's not a substantial food. So it hasn't come down
Salad's
yet,
not
but
food.
that's,
Okay.
so their salads may really be taken away from them at some point.
Title VI is the one that sets a lot of those regulations for us.
Yeah.
They're the ones that got us in that you spamming on.
Those are my comments. Anybody else?
What word are we using here? Salad bar is not essential, is that what you said?
It's a salad.
Substantial, essential?
You're looking at her, aren't you?
Just a salad bar.
I'm glad you don't have biscuits and gravy in that category.
It just depends on what type of lettuce you use.
Yeah.
If you want to get that baby spinach, then it's substantial.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that
Did
way.
you have another
Yes,
comment?
this is on a different subject, Marcia and Jerry, but community youth, I understand we're out of dollars, is that
Still on
right?
the.
Where's the
We're
water?
taking community youth,
No, we aren't out of money. What it is I have stopped taking new applications until we look at our funding
Okay.
and make sure that it lasts till the end of the year.
oh, well, that's what my concern is.
Yes, yeah.
All right, well, I
Right
heard-
now, we're okay, but, I just need to make sure because there was a big push that we did to try to get more participants, and I guess we were very good at that.
You got 'em then.
Yeah, I got them. So that's what's happened,
Okay.
and then our funding, was decreased, so anyway, we'll keep you informed
Okay.
on that.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? I guess we're good. Thank you. David?
Good afternoon. Have to apologize for Mr. Qualls. He had surgery yesterday. He's doing fine. You guys have my report? Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Janice Taylor, go ahead.
Do we have our IHS funding yet?
Still waiting on it to come in.
That's
You're ventriloquist.
that's Billy. Billy.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Harley?
Yeah, I guess, David, I've got some stuff. This is on a participant list in Spavinaw. I'm just gonna give this to you.
Okay.
I think you'd like to have it back.
We'll make copies.
Okay, and I don't know, I'm just kind of tell the committee about what went on there. David can help us see what happened. This lady had a mobile home, I guess the Cherokee Nation, I don't know if David was involved with it or not, but they went in, I'm gonna say remodel. Spent $22,000 on it 7 years ago, and now she tells me the house is not worth living in again. I understand you guys have bid it out 7 times and you can't get anybody to bid them, is that? Oh, she may not be telling me right, but that's what she's telling me.
She's right.
And I just think we need to give David more leeway on fixing homes. He bid it out 7 times, but there's got to be a different way to do this stuff. And I don't know if that's, David, if that means getting more crew members under you or what. And she tells me the house is really not worth fixing again, but the problem is she has to stay in that for so many years because she's got a $22,000 commitment to stay in the house for another 4 or 5 years. So,
There's another problem too. She is non-elderly.
yeah,
She won't qualify for a replacement home, so
she won't qualify for replacement home, so, what's a woman can do? Making a minimum wage, got a small child at home, has leaks all over the house, has mold in the house. I say there's not much we can do for her. So I guess the best thing to do, Dave, is go out there and take a look at it and see if we can do something.
I can do it.
know she's called me, I don't know how many times about it. I said, well, I'll talk to you about it. So just take those pictures there, Dave, and make some copies of it.
Okay, I'll
And
do
you
it.
take a look at it and see if there's anything we can do. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? I thought you were talking about the person in my district there. I've got one almost exactly like that.
We are.
We all do? Yeah, okay. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Mr. Cooper.
Good afternoon. You have Housing Authority's report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do want to mention, too, that on Friday, Cherokee Nation was notified that we received an ICDBG grant, Indian Community Development Block Grant. And that was the one that was submitted, if you'll recall, several months ago for replacement homes for elders, right? Rehabs. Rehabs or replacement homes? Rehabs. Rehabs for elders, right?
Right.
Yeah. Rehabs for elders. So it's $800,000 grant?
$1 million.
$800,000 ICDBG with the $200,000 match. And we were awarded that, so David does have a little bit more money to work as a result of that. So they did good. So I just wanted to be sure to mention that. That was brand new and exciting news.
Was that the total amount of the ICWG grant money?
Yeah, 800,000 is the max.
So that was all of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Okay.
Also, next month, we will need to bring forward a slight revision to the Indian Housing Plan. We need to recognize in that the HUD-VASH program. HUD has decided that for reporting requirements, that they want that reported in our Indian Housing Plan. So we need to add one single line item to reflect that. And for those council members who were around before, this is no different than what we've seen at times like with the ARA funding and some other funding, is the reporting mechanism and all of that will be part of the Indian Housing Plan. So we do need to add that for that. Also last week, we seen the President's budget request released. A couple of good things is there is an ask for a continuation of the HUD-VASH project and a little bit more money to go with that. And there is also an ask for an increase of, this was something that our national association, or the National American Indian Housing Council, we've asked for time and time again, and we've actually got it this time, is that the Indian Housing Block Grant, NAHASDA, be funded at no less than $700 million. It's been $650 million for a number of years. Pretty close to that. There's been some slight increases, but ever since then. So at least the PBR had in it $700 million. So that's a $50 million increase. Now, if the appropriators will just go along with that and do that as well, we may potentially see another increase of some more money there. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but every little bit adds up. Other than that, I think HUD is working on hiring, and as of last week, they were reporting that possibly in the next 60 days, we may have a new Deputy Assistant Secretary for Office of Native American Programs. Randy Akers, who's Comanche, who is the administrator for the Denver Regional Office, is filling in at headquarters, so he has a dual role. It's getting a little tiresome having to spend part of his time in Denver and part of his time in D.C. But I think they have it narrowed down to about 5 candidates right now, and I think they're working on, their hope is in the next 60 days, hopefully they can have someone. So we're looking forward to that. So things seem to be moving in a little bit of a positive direction. Other than that, that's all I've got, unless someone has any questions for me.
Got Janice and then Mr. Garvin and then Chief and then Buell, I think. Well, I've got a whole bunch of hands wanting to vote. So Janice, you're
So
first.
I just have a comment and pass on some information that I got. There was kind of a slow start on a home. The grandfather of the participants appealed to me, and I worked with, you were actually out of town, I worked with Erna on it. And this was back in the fall, and so I checked in with Grandpa a couple of weeks ago and said, what's the situation? He told me the kids are in the home, it is an absolute palace, and it is the best of everything available, so good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Mr. Garvin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a constituent who lives down in Texas, they vote in my area, had a question about section 184. And both the Bureau about it. Can you kind of
Sure.
brief the council on what you think?
Sure. This comes up every, I don't know, Frankie, do you remember, about every 4 years or so? It seems like this issue comes up. The council back in 2009 passed a resolution to ask HUD to consider expanding the 184 coverage area, and they never did do that. I don't, that's always been asked for. We delivered the resolution back then to them. And I don't think, and I really don't see that they might do that. We can certainly ask again. It is up to them to do it. There are some states where every county in the entire state is covered and is eligible for Section 184, and there are other states where only a portion of the county is covered for 184. And then there's even some states where no county in the state is eligible for 184. And a lot of that has to do with and Anna can correct me if I'm wrong, but since Section 184 is for Native Americans, traditionally those areas or states that are covered are either where reservations or former reservations were. So some states like Arkansas doesn't have an area that's approved for that. A state like Texas, I believe, is it 2 counties, Anna? There are 2 counties in Texas? I think there's 2 counties in Texas. And if I had to guess, I think that's probably down in South Texas around, Speaker, is it Alabama, Coshada?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say that it's down in their area, because that's really the only area of Texas and the only reason I know that's because they're members of our Regional Housing Association, and they're the only ones we have down in Texas. So that's just a little bit of history behind that.
As a real estate broker, it really helps. It's a good plan, and it really helps the buyers. And it's a great program, and I'd like to see it extended there. And Gary's going to try it one more time. It doesn't hurt.
I mean,
to do it again.
we'll submit the resolution again. The other thing that we do need to keep in mind is that the 184 program has expanded tremendously. It is a very successful program in Indian Country. So I really don't suspect, but we will just remind them that we've asked for that to be extended. I think that is going to take a lot more than us. It's probably going to take some other tribes to make the same ask.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Chief?
I know everyone's trying to bail out at the Washington DC level, IHS, BIA. How come we don't have more Cherokees interested in those top level jobs there? I mean, Comanche is one of the smallest tribes there is.
Yeah, and actually,
And nothing against them.
No.
Those are good friends.
yeah, and actually Randy is a longtime HUD employee. I think Randy's been with HUD about 20 some years. He started out in the Southwest Regional Office and then moved up and on. That's a good question, because we have a handful, but not very many Cherokees there.
One more. How many houses do we have built? I always ask that.
I think 371 as of this report.
Okay, we're getting better.
321 as of this report.
We're getting better.
Yeah, And I will tell you that we have several more under construction. You know, this is a really slow time of year, but we do have more going out under contract and some under contract, and it will start booming and picking up again this spring. We're moving. We've kind of got this system down pat. So now we're looking at maybe expanding it or growing it just a little bit.
Okay, and I saw your email about your meeting
Yes,
with
sir.
the rehab group.
Yeah.
Are they seem to be willing to come on board, and are we?
The nation and we're meeting with them on Friday, with all the employees on Friday, and I think we'll probably know more about that.
I've gotten a few calls from those
Yeah.
guys, making sure that they don't lose their seniority and making sure that they're covered and taken care of. I said, well, you know,
Yeah, and I mean, we've taken steps, because we've done this before over at Housing Authority. We've taken steps to make sure that happens. Anytime that an employee moves from that comes into our organization or moves out of our organization, as long as there's no more than a 1-year separation between one organization and another, that they keep their seniority.
Okay.
So if they had 20 years here and they come over to us, they still got 20 years. They don't start over new.
That's
And the same thing goes with someone coming from our organization over to the nation or to CNB, is they still keep that seniority.
Okay.
And then there's a couple other things that,
One of the reasons we
We've been
wanted to make that change, Gary, was that when we had a elderly that needed minimum work on their home or
Sure.
house, you know, maybe a air condition or just a hot water tank, then it took forever to go through the red tape to get something serviced to those people. And that's what we're trying to do, is somehow expedite the services to our elderly people. And that seemed to be, you know, a common, you know, concern for most of us here. I hate to speak for everybody, but I've heard these discussions before. So if we can take care of that part, I don't know if we need a separate criteria for that, but we really need to take care of those people when they have a minor repair that needs to be done.
and I can tell you that, I mean, I've heard those same concerns that you all have. I've listened to you all as you all have brought them up, and I mean, our hope and goal is to make sure that we're able to
Thank
address
you,
those.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe asked one of the questions. I want to know how many houses were complete, so on the list. But I have another one, the one in Sperry that I've talked to you about before, or you may not be, it may have been, I'm not sure. But an inspector was out there last week. The lady called me, the inspector come out because her siding, her vinyl siding's coming off. And he recommended, it's a new home, it's about 3 years old. It's about 3 or 4 years old.
It's David's.
Okay. And the vinyl siding's been coming off of it. The inspector came out and he said, well, next time we come out, we'll bring some nails and we'll just nail it all back on. You know, you can't sub-nail, or you can't face nail that plastic siding on. Those nails will pull right through there. And so I don't believe that's a good fix. But she said he just kept insisting that's the way they would repair it. That was from your inspector, so.
Yeah, we have an estimate on it now, and we're signing the crew.
Okay. So he told her they're just gonna nail it back on.
No, we're gonna fix it.
Fix it
There were
right.
There were some other issues there too. I looked at
She's
it.
got a house that was built really too low to the ground.
Well, we went out
She has a
and
drainage issue.
I'll forward you an email on it. We had a guy go up Friday, and they took a transit and shut it all in. Her house is actually higher to pad than any home in that neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
So she's good.
If you could send me that, because, boy,
I will. I'll send it to you.
she rings my phone off. So, I couldn't defend the inspector saying that.
Yeah, I've got an email I'll send you when I get back.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Gary, how are we coming along with that group of housing there at West Silent Springs?
I'll have to defer those questions to CMB.
The CMB?
Yeah, because actually it's CNCR doing that.
Now, are
They
you-
they
are
did,
you-
they did have an issue with their contract, and I think they're having to bring someone else in to
That's
finish
kind of what
those.
I heard. Are you going to be handling the occupancy of people's? gonna
Yes,
move in?
whenever they're completed.
Have you started getting applications and?
Yeah, we go from our waiting list. The waiting list we already have. Yes, no different than Councilman Warner down in his area. He has some too. No different than those. We go to our waiting list that we already have, and we ask those people.
Have you started any of that
Oh,
process?
yeah, we've already done that,
Okay.
and they're all already spoken for. Or at least we have folks interested in all of them.
All right. How many units are there, you remember?
I do not. It's 20, it's in the mid-20s, but I'd hate to tell you and it not be correct.
Okay, I'll check with CMB.
But it is in the mid-20s. But they do, and I think you've been down and looked at the ones at Roland, and actually, those were started a little bit later, but those are wrapping up, and I think that they're going to have to use someone
All
else.
right, I'll check with CMB. Thanks, sir.
Go ahead, man.
Thank you, Chair. Is there any, I get several calls because they'll go by and look
Oh,
at
yeah.
Roland. And,
Yeah.
is there any, y'all talked about changing up your plan a little bit to spec to what they got there? Because,
Sure.
when they see those, it's just,
Yeah, we have, and one of the big things is cost.
Right,
So whenever
right,
that project,
definitely.
whenever that project is completed and we're
You'll
able
be
to
able
see
to
what the
analyze
cost
it.
is, yeah, then we'll be able to say, yep, we're going
Okay.
to, or no, we're
Well,
not.
and,
And it'll
we-
probably just be an added,
right. And
And
we
add-
talked, we talked a little bit when we were there, and looking through some of those. That may be some costs that may be added to
Sure.
the individual,
Yeah.
correct?
yeah.
Because it's a different home.
Oh, it is. It's about couple hundred, 300, about 250, 300 square foot
Right.
larger.
Yeah.
Has a larger garage on
Right.
it. Has a full extra bathroom,
Right.
a
Well,
bunch of
and
nice
what I looked
features.
at, noticed, even with there's 3 floor plans,
Yeah.
even with that same thing, they could do some things different
Mhm.
with the roof and
Mhm.
the way they set it. And so each one, even though these two may have the same floor plan, they look totally
Yeah.
different on the outside, so.
Change up the roof lines.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all.
Michael Lynn? Michael tried to sneak in early a while ago, so.
I think David was pulling a fast one on me. He said I was going to come up here when you called Ron's name, so hey, I'm fine with sitting back there though. I know we're running behind on time, Mr. Chairman. I think you do have our report, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Have one.
Yes, sir.
Trying to get a hold of Commissioner Hubbard on that north end, Johnson Prairie. And a guy named Jimmy Bell just calls me every other week, and we can't get a hold of him. You might get a hold of him. They just want an appraisal for maybe a chip and seal.
Okay.
And that's it. If you can do that, you're good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
We'll do.
Anyone
I'll get a
else?
hold of him.
Good report.
I guess we're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anna Knight?
Last night or in
Good afternoon. You have a copy of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I know you're running a little bit late.
Questions?
You're good.
Thank you very much.
We're down to old business, and I think that Gail has sent you guys some pictures of the storm shelter at New Alloway. And otherwise, I think I'm just gonna pull this because it's gonna probably be next year's funding before Gary or anybody could do anything with this, but I kinda wanted to discuss it a little bit. Gary, you've seen those pictures, I think, yeah. So I'd like to withdraw it.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, is that for just the 14 county area for storm shelter?
Well, the storm shelters that this referred to would be for the community buildings and the senior citizens complexes, and so, yes, it would be 14 county.
Okay, thank
The other storm shelters for outside, I think, are, what were they, Jack? Oklahoma City or
Right, tornado.
Tornado?
I just think get questions from there because Susan's up on us.
Sure. And so I'll withdraw that, and what we got next? No new business? Any announcements?
Motion to adjourn, Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
How much time do you need, Chairman?
Got 20